this is Conversations with Faye.
To change the situation for myself and not feel victim of it.
By accident.
Let's find out
That these are conversations that are going to come up naturally.
Yeah.
And again, back to where money's involved, it gets very...
I'm going to put this one on.
I'm going to put it on a different way. You know, as a small business, you need to get your message out to wherever your ideal clients are.
Yes, those difficult decisions around what age are the kids?
Should I leave or should I go?
It's poor. Like, where am I sabotaging myself?
Life. Conversations with Faye. Changing lives. One conversation at a time. And suffer the consequences. Welcome to Conversations with Faye. I'm Faye Waterman, your host, and today's episode is the continuation of Archetypes. My guest is Bronwyn Boyle, and this is episode 3, talking about the different stages of archetypes. And today we're going to delve a little bit further into how we can embrace those archetypes in our own lives. Those archetypes, there are 4 main ones, but there are many more, are the saboteur, the victim, the child, and the prostitute. Let's see what Bronwyn has to say. Welcome back. We're going to be talking about the real archetypes and how you find out what you do to find out what archetype you are. But there's a bit of work in that, isn't there, Bronwyn?
Yeah, just a bit.
So, Bronwyn, explain to us how we actually find out what our archetypes are and the process to actually find out that archetype.
Well, really, it's a bit of a questioning process a lot because I'm trying to draw out of you some of the patterns of your life, and then we're going to put them into some areas.
Okay, well, try it on me.
I would put you in that artist family, that creative artist kind of family.
Mm-hmm.
And so we would start talking about right from when you were young, right from when you were a kid in school, like what were your favourite things to do as a child, and what were your favourite storybook characters? What were the things that got your attention as a child? Because with little boys and little girls,
It's different.
well, what makes a little boy want to be Spider-Man over a different superhero?
Yeah.
You know, so you kind of look at the choices they make. And then you've got the kids who they just want to be a nurse, the kids that want to be a teacher, the kids that want to be astronauts, you know. An astronaut's different to a pirate.
Totally.
You know?
But when I was growing up,
Mm-hmm.
I was a tomboy because I had 5 brothers. So, you know, what did I do as a kid?
What got your attention?
Playing basketball, riding billy carts, building billy carts, skateboards, riding my bike, climbing trees, all that sort of stuff when I was a kid.
So you loved a bit of a sense of adventure.
Oh, yeah.
And what about now?
I suppose my sense of adventure has changed a little bit, like climbing trees or getting on a skateboard I could get in a billy cart, but getting on a skateboard or something like that. It's changed my perception of that because there's a...
But is there still a want for the sense of adventure?
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely.
So the adventurer is different to an explorer, is different. Like, so over decades, so I'd probably split it up depending on the age of the person, but definitely we would do childhood, we'd do late teens, early 20s,
Yeah.
we would do 30s, and we would look for a thread
Okay.
of that motivation over decades.
Would it be a consistent thread or would it be something that's, you know, a little bit up and down thread?
It could be up and down depending on the pressures of the time. However, the want would be there and there would be still the thread.
Right. Okay.
There are some archetypes that I think get animated or wake up later in life.
Yeah.
The entrepreneur is one of them.
Mm-hmm.
However, when you talk to somebody who, as a kid, they were making money. They were whether it's a paper run or something.
Yeah.
I remember a friend of mine's daughter, natural born entrepreneur.
Right.
She had a pet sitting business. She had 3 or 4 different things that she did because she wanted to develop the economics of her and so that she could.
Yeah. Yeah.
And by the time of 10, 11 years old, she was buying her own clothes. She was maybe not every single piece, but she had the money in her own bank account that she could go out and spend on things if she really wanted to.
At 10 and 11 years old, that's pretty cool.
But she also had parents who encouraged and created an environment where she could flourish in that way, where there was rules and boundaries. Yes, you can do pet sitting. And they helped her do that, but it was all her idea. There was something in her. She was always going to find a way
to do whatever
to solve a problem.
Right. Okay.
Like that. Okay. She was always going to do something that would be that sense of adventure around business.
Yeah. That's a natural ability, a natural strength.
A lot of kids don't.
They don't care. They don't want to do it.
They might want the money, but they're not doing the effort to get the money.
Yeah. Yeah. There's a lot of kids out there with expectations.
Yeah, it's a bit like, I want a puppy. Well, you can have a puppy if you feed it and clean up after it and do all of those things. How many parents do you hear later on going,
I'm doing all that.
I'm doing all that. So it's the same thing. Whereas this kid had a pet sitting and she did the work.
Yeah.
She went to the supermarket. She made sure they had the right food. If whatever the parameters were, she could only have 2 at any one time. It wasn't every single week. There were some rules around it.
Yeah.
But then she became known as that kid, and so word spread. And before you knew it, she was fully booked out. Had to knock things back.
She was busy.
Good
on her. Entrepreneurial at that age. I think it's wonderful. How else do you find out what your archetype is? What sort of questions do you ask someone to find out what that actual archetype is?
Well, one question leads to another.
Yeah.
But I have a lineup of questions for different. Once I've got an inkling down a path or a family of archetype. So there's like the feminine family, the masculine family, the kind of royal sovereign. Then I kind of will adjust as I go and confirm or deny, if you like.
Yeah.
And so you'll end up with this is where we're at.
Yeah.
And the person at the end of it picks which one is for them with the guidance to get there. But
they'd have to have that guidance, or sometimes do you find that would be a natural thing for them just to pick something because they feel it? Is it a feeling? Is it an emotion?
I think the first few archetypes are fairly obvious.
Yeah.
I think that there's a few others that are more difficult because you can have, let's say, a mentor, a student, and a teacher.
Yeah.
They kind of look a bit the same because the teacher is always the student's always the teacher, and the mentor teaches and learns. So think of it as you're getting a diagnosis with the doctor. You start out with the same tests. Everyone gets until there's a differentiation that now puts it into this category or this type of illness.
Right.
So the baseline's pretty much the same. And then as it gets more specific, well, it's not that then, and it's not that then this is what we're looking at. And until you get the diagnosis.
Okay.
Does that make sense?
Yes, it does, because, you have to have specific amount of certain questions, one that builds on the next, on the next, on the next, to find out where they're actually, what their thought processes is, what their emotions and things like that are.
Like with emotion, yes. And let's not get too emotional about things, because once emotion comes in, you're too invested.
Ah, right. Okay. That makes it easier.
Yeah,
to
because
understand.
because emotion, we take is where we start to take things way too personally, and it's
Yeah.
quite impersonal. They're not literal, and a lot of what I'm doing oftentimes in those early stages is stretching someone's definition because people are so literal.
Yeah.
So to stretch because it's a symbolic language.
It takes them places where they haven't been, but gives them the opportunity to think.
Well, you're not going to come up with it in a week.
No.
This is over a long period of time. You can get your basics early on,
How
but
long would it take you to? I mean, I know there are multiples of archetypes, but we were talking about the 4 basic archetypes, and then there's others behind that. How long would it take to work through the process of really starting to, for someone like me to understand that is my real archetype? Because
that's
we
the
can make
easy
an
bit,
assumption.
That's the easy bit is coming up with what your archetypes are. The work then really goes. So how do I then integrate that into my life?
Right.
What's the use of knowing what your archetypes are if you don't know what to do with them? It's just a vanity exercise to be able to say, well, I know this.
But if you don't really understand and how to process through what that particular archetype is, you can't really be that archetype, can you?
Well, it's how you apply it or how you use it in your life.
And you have to have an understanding of how to apply and use it in your life.
You have to understand it in you.
Yes, yes.
And not it, because that's a separate entity. How is it in you?
And that's knowing you, isn't it?
That's knowing you.
Yeah.
Now we're into the realm of knowing ourselves.
Yeah.
Under these, in these circumstances, I am likely to.
Okay.
This is my usual response. And if I look at it in a sliding scale from shadow to light, what's my propensity and what's my potential?
Yeah. So you create a thought process for someone to create it or develop an understanding of who they truly are and understand who they truly are and those archetypes.
So I think we talked in the first episode about the light and the shadow of an
Yes,
archetype.
we did.
So, just as a reminder, the shadow is that bit that we either don't know about ourselves or the perception is that it's negative.
Right.
And oftentimes it's because it has a negative result in our life, right?
Yes,
Okay.
yes, understand.
The light side feels lighter. It feels more like you're more in flow.
Yeah.
It feels more encompassing and feels more attractive.
Right.
All right. Feels more positive.
Okay.
So one of the things about when we find some archetypes, and I'm always going to dig for one that you don't like, because there's always something about ourselves that we don't like.
Oh, God, yes.
Yeah. So it's looking for, and so you can't ignore it because that is the thing that is going to be the craw. The thing that sticks in your craw is going to be your Achilles heel.
Yeah.
Because we've all got those people in our lives that know how to press our buttons.
Oh, God, yes.
Whether it's your brother, your sister, somebody is able to get under your skin.
Yes. But we allow them to get under our skin too.
Oh, the conditions are perfect for it to happen.
Yeah.
It's like, I can remember it was the first Christmas in years that my brother and I had been home to my parents at the same time for Christmas because we lived in other states.
Yeah.
And I lived in America for a long time. And it was like we were 10, 12 again at most doing the dishes because my parents didn't have a dishwasher.
Right.
So we were doing the dishes and we were fighting over who was doing the washing up and like it was.
And who was.
And I remember just stopping going, what are we, 12? And it's the conditions are there with certain people because that's the pattern of that relationship.
And it brings back those
and it
memories.
puts you back being 10 years old again. You can feel that in another person because they remind you of your mother or they remind you of a family member. And that can be a big enough trigger to put you not in your best light.
So reminding you of your mother or whatever, sometimes when you hear someone say something or you say something and you think, oh, that's my mother who said that.
Oh, I only had that the other day. I can't remember what it was, but I'd said something to my partner and and I saw him do a double take and I went, oh, that was my mother. That was dead set. My mother just came out of my mouth and I'm sorry, because it wasn't the best expression. and he's just laughed. He goes, no, it wasn't. And I heard it.
Yeah.
And acknowledged it. And spoke it. And said, and went, that wasn't quite what I meant to say. That it was like I was channeling my mother. I'm sorry. A better way to say that would be.
Yeah.
What I actually meant was. And it can be the silliest little thing. And I think that sometimes the big things we expect, the big things we can forgive. We don't forget them, but we can forgive them. It's the little things
that niggle away
because they're not big enough to make an issue of them. So we let the little things and they accumulate over time until one day it'll be the straw that broke the camel's back.
Yeah. So we've got the archetypes. Mention the 4 archetypes again.
The saboteur, the victim, the prostitute, and the child.
Now, talk about what the saboteur briefly is.
So the saboteur is, where do you sabotage yourself or where do you sabotage others? But people will first up go, I sabotage myself all the time. I eat things I know I shouldn't eat. I don't exercise when I know I should get up and move. I make promises to myself that I'm never going to keep.
Are you talking to me?
I think it's probably the most recognisable for ourselves. And it's the easiest one to accept because everybody does it. And we can forgive ourselves those little things because we do all do it and we give each other permission.
Okay, let's move on to the victim.
The victim is the one where we blame others. So where are we blaming people in our lives? The facts are the facts. Things have happened.
Yes.
Maybe we feel victimised or we've been the victim of somebody else's choices. But do we give in to that and go full-blown victim to it? Or do we go, I can't change that. I can change how I show up in that.
Yes. Yes, that makes sense.
So to go from the victim to the victorious.
Right. What about the prostitute? Because people will look at the prostitute as you said earlier, the fishnet stockings, and that sort of thing.
Lights. There is so much power in the prostitute.
Okay.
I mean, they all have so much power, but the one people get so offended by because of the word, and I've looked for something else. It's like, what else can I call it?
Just call it prostitute.
But you can't. It is what it is.
It is. Okay, so explain it.
So what is the price? What is your price? What's your bottom line?
But what's your price for what? What are you talking about?
Anything. It can be, what's the price I'm willing to pay for financial security?
Right.
What is the price I'm willing to pay to get what I want?
What is the price of living in this relationship?
What's the price of this job? What's the price of this relationship? And am I willing to pay it?
Yeah.
So over time, our price changes.
Yeah. And it's not necessarily a financial price. It's
the cost. What's the cost of my integrity?
Yeah.
Am I willing to donate that much of myself
to this,
to the betterment of somebody else and the detriment of me?
Yeah. Okay.
Am I willing to compromise what I truly think and feel and believe?
Yeah.
For a peaceful life.
So the prostitute is, you really have to delve in and ask yourself and be honest, asking yourself, what price am I paying for the part of life that I'm in that I don't really like?
Well, and too, it's like, it's a bit like making everyone else or a situation wrong enough for you to feel okay to leave it. You can know that this isn't the workplace for you and be brave enough to take that leap of faith and move on. Maybe you do have to have another job to go to because the reality is you've got bills to pay.
Yes.
But you don't need to make that place that wrong that it's okay to leave.
Have a bit of integrity.
Because you can burn a lot of bridges on your way out.
Mm-hmm.
You can do a lot of damage to your self-esteem and your reputation on the way out.
Yeah. Okay.
So nobody else is living your life for you.
No, and they can't really.
The prostitute really is know your price, know your worth, know your price, and know that it's okay to compromise for a period of time for a certain factor. And a lot of the time it is to do with kids and family. While someone's studying, I've got to work full time, they're studying, or the kids are at school, and once they're out of school, whatever those choices are, you make a more economical choice until the circumstances change. And that's fine because you're knowing it and you've made a conscious choice to do that. But once the factor has shifted, the kids have left home, they're at uni now or whatever that is, or they've got their degree and they've got their first job, now we can afford to make different choices together.
Yeah.
Okay.
Last archetype?
The child. It's the little part of us. It's that little voice. And you know when you're going into child because it's like that. You can almost feel yourself shrink into this. And I usually use the age of 5. And when you're in an argument with someone and they don't want to take responsibility, I see it all the time where the capacity for language changes. So a child doesn't have the sophistication that an adult has in sentence structure and right. So you can see the descent of someone, and that's when someone will say it's like talking to a 5-year-old. Yeah, you kind of are. You're talking to the 5-year-old version of that person. And if you're the one that recognizes that first, you really need to be adult enough to give them a graceful out and just say, you know what, I'm not at my best right now. What say we come back to this later?
Okay.
Whatever that scenario looks like, and you'll know the fight style of the especially if it's an intimate partner, you'll know their fight style.
So you just give them some breathing space.
Yeah, otherwise you'll end up with a very immature argument, and you will pay a price for that because you'll say things you don't mean.
Yeah.
You might mean them in that moment, but not to the extreme that you express it. And once an argument goes south, you will become 5 and you will drag that old wound out. You'll drag it out and go, but when you said, that was 3 years ago.
Yeah.
God, that was 10 years ago. There is an energy in knowing yourself that well, that you can move about the world comfortable in your own skin, knowing that you can back yourself up, that you can make a mistake and it's not going to derail you. It might make you pause, but you can gather yourself.
Pick yourself up and move on.
Pick yourself up, but I actually literally mean gather yourself. Because if you're in a situation and you're feeling scattered, like I know myself, if I've got a day of meetings and I feel like I'm rushing around, I actually make myself sit and gather myself and I call myself back so that I can be present. The thing about knowing who you are is that you can make more informed choices around what direction you might like to take your life, or not even be that in control of it, but to be more present so you can recognize the opportunities as they arise. It's being ready and able to take hold of an opportunity and recognize it for what it is and not be wedded to it so that you squeeze the life out of it. Think about surfing.
Yeah, I'd drown.
But it's that gentle balance of where to be in the board. It's like, so it's the balance and the harmony between you, the surfboard, and the wave. That's what I'm trying to describe. It's like you can't control the ocean. You can move with it.
Yes.
And not against it. And a life that moves with the wave, and you know when you've seen the perfect wave, a surfer will let a lot of waves go.
Of course.
And they'll pick the one.
Yeah.
So it's the harmony between you and the elements, knowing who you are, not putting on a mask you don't trust is you. That's not who I am. That's not who I want to be. It's not, it doesn't quite get there.
Bronwyn, that makes so much sense. I've had so much fun delving a little bit further into these archetypes, getting a better understanding of how we can utilize them in our day-to-day lives and how we as individuals can get a better understanding of the archetypes that we have. We talk about the 4 main archetypes, the saboteur, the victim, the child, and the prostitute. But there are so many more there for us to understand, and they may be a part of who we are. We have to learn to embrace those archetypes that belong to us. We've covered a lot, Bronwyn, over this conversation, and I'm sure when you come back next time for episode 4 that we will bring it all together, even get more of an understanding of how those archetypes work for us in our day-to-day lives. Thank you for watching. I'm Faye. This has been Conversations with Faye. I'll be back next week with another guest and another conversation. Bye for now. Hit the subscribe button on our YouTube channel, like us on Facebook, and follow us on Instagram. Changing lives, one conversation at a time.